day. Welcome in episode 4 out of 10 beginner lessons for accordion by Accordion Shop Cape Town. My name is Stanislav Angelo, and I'm your accordion teacher and your accordion advisor. Those of you who are finding this video by chance, you're probably looking for lessons without a teacher. You're looking to learn to play the accordion on your own. I will try to help you in this way, but I always recommend for beginners, whether you play another instrument or not, it's very important to have a teacher, a specialist who knows about the accordion. Perhaps if you haven't seen the previous 3 lessons, I would recommend especially the second and the third lesson, because there are a lot of basics that I explain in those lessons. One more thing for people that play piano and they consider learning accordion, as I'm going to share in the description of this video a link to another video that I recorded in another channel. It's the Cape Town Academy of Music, and I specifically in that video discuss the difference between piano and accordion and the mistakes that can happen by people who play piano and try to use that knowledge in the accordion. For those of you who are real beginners, who don't read music, it's time to go back to the sheet music and see how that works. And before we move on to the actual music of 2 hands for accordion, let's have a look at the exercise 1 that we learned in the previous lesson. Hopefully you practiced it, because this is how you're actually going to be able to play with 2 hands together, very similar to when you learn a song or an exercise on piano. You first practice each hand on its own for a while, you get familiar with what that hand needs to do, and only then when you try to put the 2 hands together, it becomes fairly easy. And now let's have a look at, so this was the first exercise. In the exercise that we're going to play together, what we have to play in the right hand is going to be exactly the same, except one of the bars will not be there. As you can see, similarly to the piano, the accordion music is also written on 2 staves, which you read at the same time. And it's kind of scary very often when you try it for the first time. You have to split your brain almost in 2 parts, and the one part will be dealing only with your right hand is doing, and then the other part will be with the left hand, etc. But keep trying, it's going to work. So there's the notes that we played in exercise number 1. So here we're going to play the same notes in the right hand. There's the C, D, E, F, and G. We'll have only one G, as I said earlier. And then we go back F, E, D, and C. So the left hand again will use similar notes that we practiced in exercise number 6 of the previous lesson, but perhaps in slightly different sequence, so that when we play the 2 hands together, it can all work and sound really nice. And now let's hear this, what it sounds like, and you can watch while I play. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to use the same exercises that we practiced in the previous lesson with each hand, and now we're going to, with slight changes, put the 2 hands together. My advice to you always is to practice each hand on its own. So if you look at this exercise, we've got again 4 counts in every bar, and in every bar we have only 1 note, still getting in the same position. Just a little tip also about selecting which sound you would like to use when you practice. For beginning, I would normally use the switch that will either have a name violin or celeste or tremolo, but in general the sign for it is this little 2 dots in the middle. Some of my students say that it looks like a ninja face. So anyway, there is the first exercise, only the right hand. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. Close the bellows. 1, 2, 3, open. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, open. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And after you've practiced this for a while and you're feeling comfortable, then you practice your left hand. So the left hand will go like this. Remember that we play at the moment all the notes except the last note in every exercise, very short, what we call in music staccato. Okay, I start with the first bar, and again the bellows changes are happening on every bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. F. 1, 2, 3, up to the C. 1, 2, 3, going to the G. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down to C. 3, 4. G. 2. And now along C. 1, 2, 3, 4. And when we finish with the open bellows, we close the bellows with the air button. Alright, and I'm going to play the whole exercise with two hands together. My advice to you is not to try to play the whole exercise immediately, but maybe just play 1 or 2 bars until you're feeling comfortable, because holding a note with the one hand and playing short notes on the other hand could be quite complicated to get from the first time. This is what it should sound when you know it very well. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then we're going to move to the next exercise, which will remind you very much of exercise number 2 from the previous lesson, where you had to play notes for 3 counts, rest for 1 count in the right hand. And the left hand again will be exactly the same as what it was in the previous exercise. So this is how it's going to sound. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and always practice each hand on its own for a while together. One more tip about the people that can play piano and feel the keyboard. Whenever you practice the notes of the right hand only, it's not that you actually practicing on your right hand, because your left arm is still part of the sound of the right hand notes. So in other words, even if you're not playing notes with your left hand fingers, you're still playing with two hands, because the left hand actually is the one that controls the sounds. And now we're going to move on to the exercise that will remind you of exercise number 3 from the previous lesson. In the right hand, again with only one G in the middle. So here we'll have 2 counts in the right hand for each note, and then 2 counts of rest. And have a listen to this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the next thing that we're going to learn for this lesson, the exercise that reminds you of exercise number 4 from the previous lesson, when in the right hand we had 2 notes in every bar and each note was 2 counts, but the left hand notes will still be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there we go. This next exercise, it will sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And these are the exercises that we're going to try to play with 2 hands together. Very simple, very easy. You always try to make sure that the notes, especially the right hand notes, are ended before you're going to change the bellows. That's very important thing to watch. Another advice I would give you, when you feel that you're knowing the exercise well and playing it well, record yourself with your phone, any other device that you have available for that, and listen. You might find quite a few mistakes that you didn't notice while you played. Next thing we're going to learn this lesson is how to play the scale with the right hand. But before we do that, let's have a look at the sheet music for that. And here is the C major scale that we're going to learn this lesson with the right hand only. We already know the first 5 notes, the C, D, E, F, and G. Then we're going to learn 3 more notes today. So you must practice to recognize them after this lesson finishes, and if you have any music at home. We haven't discussed this, but as you noticed, each note has got its own place on the stave. And if you remember, G is on the second line of the stave. So the note after the G is the A, which is in that second space. On the third middle line of the stave, we've got the B. And then we've got another C note, which is the octave higher C, next to the other group of 2 black notes. And then we go back with the same notes back to the first C, where we started from. For now, we're going to play the notes without connecting them. They will be detached from each other. I'm going to demonstrate it in a moment. What is important to notice, and that's why I made this number 1 and number 3 over here, bigger than the other. These are the finger numbers, if you remember. Because this is where there will be a change in your hand, because the first 3 notes you play with the first, second, third finger, and then you play the next note again with the first finger until you finish with your 5th finger. And then when you go back and you have your first finger on the F, after that you need to move your hand and put the 3rd finger on the E and finish like that. You will see it in a moment when I play it for you. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So for now, feels very slow. Eventually, as you start feeling comfortable with what is going on with the movement of the hand, you can go to faster speed. But for now, we're not connecting the notes. Just remember, you're trying to play them separated from each other. So that's a good speed to aim for. The other thing that we probably notice, I have been experimenting with a theory that I watched once, a video of the late
Chick Corea, great jazz pianist. In fact, he was a classical pianist as well, but he was known as a jazz pianist. He was saying about the turning of the thumb under the third finger and the opposite. That according to him, this is actually not necessary and it even slows you down. So since I've been watching it, I've been experimenting, and I think he's right. It feels that it's not right, but after a while, it actually, you realize that it makes you faster. So instead of doing what he suggests and what he does is this. So really moving of the hand from one position to another. Or the opposite. So you're most welcome to try this way or do the proper turn under or over. But the main thing is that the fingering still remains the same. Whichever you approach it, it doesn't matter, but use this fingering. After the third finger, we put the thumb on the next note. If you enjoyed this lesson, please remember to subscribe to this channel. There's also a link to buy me a coffee for those of you who want to support these videos and help me produce better videos, get better equipment. And of course, if you want to book a lesson one-on-one with me, online or in-house, the link for that will also be in the description of this video. Thank you so much, and you'll also find the links to the previous lessons if you haven't seen them yet.